1 second. Right, everybody in a moment. Make sure this thing works.
Pin.
That's it. Okay, great. First of all, terrific that everybody's here. That's
Your voice is echoing a little bit, Juditha.
Oh, is that better?
Yeah.
Oh, great. Thank you for reminding me. I just needed to bring the microphone quite a lot closer.
Yeah, okay. No, now it's perfect.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you. Okay, let's start off with our tefillah. Where's it gone? I don't know what's happened. Right. Okay, now I do share. Okie doke, here we go. So I absolutely want to dedicate our learning to the soldiers, especially those in Gaza, the righteous soldiers of our holy nation. And may God protect them wherever they are.
Amen.
And also for the safety and the redemption of the hostages as quickly as we can.
Amen.
Okay. ריבון עולמים ואדוני אדונים, אב רחמן וסליחות, מודים אנחנו לפניך, אדוני אלוהינו ולאבותינו, בקידה, בשתחוויה, שקרבתנו לתורתך ולעבודתך עבודת הקודש, ונתת לנו חלק בסודות תורתך הקדושה, מה אנו ומי חיינו, אשר עשית עמנו חסד גדול כזה, על כן אנחנו מפילים תחנוננו לפניך, שתמחול ותסלח לכל חטאותינו ועוונותינו, ואל יהיו עוונותינו מבדילים בינינו לבינך, וכן יהי רצון מלפניך, אדוני אלוהינו ולאבותינו, שתכונן את לבבינו ליראתך ולבבך, ותקשיב אוזניך לדברינו אלה, ותפתח לבבינו הערל בסודות תורתך, ויהיה לימודנו זה נחת רוח לפני כיסא כבודך קרח ניחוח, ותאציל עלינו אור מקור נשמתנו בכל בחינתנו, שיתנוצצו ניצוצות עבודך הקדושים, אשר על ידם גלית דבריך אלה בעולם, וזכותם וזכות אבותם, וזכות תורתם ותמימותם וקדושתם, יעמוד לנו לבן להיכשל בדברים אלו, ובזכותם תראיננו במה שאנו לומדים, כמה נעים זמירות ישראל, גל עיני והביטה נפלאות מתורתך, כי אדוני ייתן חוכמה מפיו דעת ותבונה, יהיו לרצון ממפי, ויגון ליבי לפניך, אדוני צורי וגואלי, אמן, כן יהי רצון.
Amen.
Okay. So I want to start with this beautiful piece from the Zohar, which I think I've learned with a couple of you already, but I want to learn it again, because every time I learn it, I see another thing in it. I see another layer in it. So even if we've learned it before, we learned it last year or something, it's still absolutely worth learning again. Okay. So, I mean, every time you learn it, there's sort of another angle, another way to see it. It's from Zohar Vayera, and it's the article of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Tachazi, kagavna da, v'yom Rosh Hashanah, v'yom Kippurim, the dinna ishtakach ba'olma, ihu kaim lekatrega, v'Yisrael bayin lit'ara b'shofar, u'lit'ara kol, דקליל באש ומאיה ורוחה, ותבית וחד, ולאשמעה הוא קול, migo shofar. Come and see. It's like this on the day of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippurim, that the judgment is found in the world. And the Satan stands to accuse. That Israel needs then to awaken with the shofar and to awaken a voice which is made up of water, fire, and air, which are the three sfirot, chesed, gevurah, tiferet, which become one, and to bring the sound of from within the shofar. Now, this sort of imagery which is brought here is also very much the imagery that we find in the prayer book and in the imagery in general around Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And it's an imagery which, if you take it literally, creates all sorts of images in one's mind, like, you know, an old man in the sky with the scales and the book open or something, which I certainly had as a child, and which I found frightening, and which I disliked intensely. And I think many, a lot of the sort of piyutim, how do you say it, hymns and things around in the prayer books on for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur have this type of language, okay? Judgment, the Satan, accusation, okay? And we have to remember that the Torah speaks in different languages. There are, in fact, 4 languages of the Torah. The language of the Torah itself, what's called the Pshat, the literal language. We have the language of halacha, which is actually how to do the mitzvot. We have the language of midrash, which is the language of parable. And we have the language of Kabbalah, which is the language of the sfirot and the lights and the vessels, which is the most innermost aspect of the Torah. And the language of the Kabbalah, the inner language, is actually found in all aspects of the Torah because it's the most innermost aspect of the Torah. And so if you're going to look at this sort of parable, which we've got here, okay, and we're going to look at it in terms of the language of Kabbalah, we're actually going to see that its meaning becomes much more user-friendly, okay, especially to our modern ears. All right. So what does he say? The Zohar says, come and see, it is like this on the day of Rosh Hashanah. What's Rosh? Rosh is the head or the beginning of the Shana. The Shana is a year, the cycle of the year. Now, the cycle of the year itself can be seen as one whole spiritual entity. All right. So it begins in Tishrei and it goes around the whole year, 12 months of the year, and we finish in the last day of Elul. All right. So we've got the cycle of the year. So then we've got the spiritual entity, one whole spiritual entity, which is called the Shana. Now, the interesting thing about the word Rosh in the Kabbalah is that it's not only the beginning, it's also the potential, okay? Because what Sof Maaseh b'machshava tchila, like the end of the action is all contained in its original thought. So the original thought of the high holy days of Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot, and Simchat Torah, which we actually really need to see as one festival, really. Okay, it's all different parts of the same thing, basically. All right. Okay, it's Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Simchat Torah. It finishes on Simchat Torah. All of it is the beginning, making the beginning, the potential, which will then unfold throughout the year. All right. So the whole idea of Rosh Hashanah is the beginning of the spiritual entity, which is going to be the whole year round. Okay. And so therefore, it contains within itself, it's like encapsulated, like within Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, and Simchat Torah, the potential of the year. So it's the beginning and it's the potential. And it's on this day of Rosh Hashanah and on Yom Kippur that the judgment is found then in the world. Okay? What is it talking about? What judgment are we talking about? What rule, what principle are we actually discussing here? So when you learn Kabbalah, you learn that there's really only one rule in actual fact, okay? And that is that when God created, the purpose of God's creation is to give goodness to the created beings. That was his purpose in creation. All right. And therefore, he created within all created beings a will to receive pleasure and joy. That's the reality of creation. Every single aspect of creation, including the human beings, has the desire to receive pleasure and joy. And this desire to receive pleasure and joy is called, in the language of the Kabbalah, is called the Malchut. It's the vessel with which we all receive pleasure and joy. And then the Malchut, in the Ein Sof, in the infinite, made a momentous decision. It realized that whilst the Creator is all giving, the vessel, the Malchut, is receiving. And it wanted to kind of like upgrade and become in super unity with God, even though there was nothing wrong with its receiving in the Ein Sof, in the meaning of Hu Ushmo Echad, that the light and the vessel are one. Okay, what actually found is that it wanted to learn how to be a giver. It wanted to become into more affinity of form with the Creator, even more unity with the Creator than it already was. So it made a decision, and it made it as a choice, a totally free choice. And its free choice was it wanted to stop receiving and learn to be a giver. That free choice is called the Tzimtzum. Okay, it reduced its desire to receive, and it wants to learn how to give. Now, that choice, okay, that it made is, there's a rule in spirituality. There's rules in spirituality just like there are physical rules, okay? And the rule in spirituality is what is a choice in the higher one, like in the previous stage, becomes obligatory in the subsequent stage, okay? So we are the children of the Malchut. We are the children of that original vessel. And therefore we are obliged to abide by its decision. So the one principle that there really is in the world is that we can no longer use our vessels of receiving in a primal desire to receive pleasure just when we want it, but we have to, first of all, stop using our vessels of receiving and prefer to use giving instead. We have to abide by that rule, okay? And when we don't, there are consequences. Just like, if you drop something, it falls on the ground, okay? That's a consequence, all right? And so there's spiritual consequences too, all right? So the consequence is not being punished in the way of suffering and things like that. The consequence, if we don't abide by the rule, is that we separate from our soul, we separate from the Creator. And then in order to bring us back and to remind us where we should be, we can either do tshuva, all right, consciously come back, or God forbid, we might get a knock on the head by the Creator might bring us back in a more, rude awakening. All right, that is actually what happens. So when we come to Rosh Hashanah, we want to come as clean as possible. We want to have as much awareness as possible, okay? Because we're going to start a new cycle off, all right? Now, when Rosh Hashanah comes around, we find that we actually have the cycle of the vessel beginning all over again. And so in the minute, we'll just look at that cycle in a bit more detail. But so this is what's actually happening. All right. So let's go first to I want to continue with the Perush, and then we'll come back to the other bits that we looked at here. Perush. Yud Bet Chodshei Shana, the 12 months of the year, Hem Tikkun HaMalchut. They are the rectification of the Malchut. That's the rectification of our desire, okay, which is inside each one of us, all right? Mitchilata, from its beginning to its end, all right? And since its end isn't completely complete until we reach the end of the tikkun of all the souls, okay, because all the souls make up together the one soul which God created, which was the soul of Adam. And until all that is complete, okay, therefore we need each year to go back and correct it. That doesn't mean to say that we're going over what we've done in the past, okay, and we're just going round and round each year. It's more like the way a tree grows, all right? We're not going over the same points. We're adding another circle of correction, put it that way. All right, we're adding to the correction that has already happened. So even though in the year we go through the same months, we don't go through them in the same way. Every single time it's new, every single month is new, every single week is new, every single day is new. Every single day has its own tikkun. So each year we go through the same energies, all right, which give us the opportunity to add to the tikkun of the Malchut. So the tikkun of the Malchut is our own personal tikkun, and that joins with the collective and makes up together the collective tikkun of the Malchut, which is the vessel which we can receive all God's goodness. Valken b'kol Rosh Hashanah anu matchilim mibereshit tikkun HaMalchut. And therefore, on every Rosh Hashanah, we start again from the very beginning, the rectification of the Malchut. Now, I started speaking about the very, very beginning of the Malchut in the Ein Sof, and then the Tzimtzum, okay? And then we kind of skipped to the fact that the human being is the actualization of the Malchut, if you like, in this world, all right? But of course, there are stages in between, all right? There's a whole series of stages which are described by the Zohar and by the Holy Ari, okay, which go from the Ein Sof step by step by step by step by step until you get to the creation of the human being as a soul within the body, all right? And so the actual correction, beginning of the Malchut, which is described here, is before the creation of man, all right, and is actually talking about the Rosh Hashanah is actually the energies which begin the creation of the Malchut, sort of like in a halfway stage, not in the Ein Sof, not at the Tzimtzum, but actually on the fourth day of creation. So I want to just go first now, a moment, to Here we go. Stop share. What's in the chat? Share. Here we go. No, not that. I want, where is it? I want to get to, here we are, I got it earlier. That's it. Try again. Where's the share thing gone? Here we are. Let's go to the fourth day of creation, all right? As it's described in the Torah. Here we are. Vayam Elohim, and God said, Yehi ma'orot b'yukei hashamayim, lavdil ben hayom u'ben halayla, v'hayu la'otot u'lemoadim v'le'amim v'shanim. And God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to distinguish between the day and the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and for years. And let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven, to give light on the earth, and it was so. And God made two great lights, the great light to govern the day, and the little light to rule the night, and the stars. Now, if you look at this sentence very carefully, it's a very odd sentence, all right? It doesn't look odd at the beginning, but when you really look at it, you suddenly discover it's very odd. You start off the sentence with two great lights, okay? And you finish the sentence with one big light and one little light, okay? So something's obviously happened, all right, in the middle of the sentence. What is this? What is the Torah here describing? Okay, now, like I say, the language of the Torah is like this, is very difficult to understand. All right, it looks simple on the surface, all right, but it isn't. The language of Kabbalah tells us much more about what's really happening. The sages tell us that this sentence deals with the development of the malchut, the development of the vessel, okay, that we're talking about, all right? And on Rosh Hashanah, we're in the situation where the light in the malchut is enormous. It's in the same category as the Zerampin. It's two great lights. That's the situation on Rosh Hashanah, okay? It's like the Rosh Hashanah, the Malchut has gone back to its original formation, okay, where it was made in a meaning of two great lights. All right, that's not how it's going to stay. It's the big light refers to the Zerampin, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and the little light refers to the Malchut. The moon is the Shekhinah is likened to the Malchut. The Malchut is likened to the moon, okay, which rules the night. Okay, so we're going to the Rosh Hashanah. The situation goes back to the two big lights. Let me go back now to where we were. No, that's the one. All right. But we'll call Rosh Hashanah, and therefore on every Rosh Hashanah, we start again. Like we said, it's the cycle. We need to start it again. So we go back to the very beginning of the Tikkun Malchut, which, like I say, is kind of the Zohar doesn't go all the way back to the beginning, which is in the Ein Sof. It's sort of like halfway, all right, through the development of the worlds, okay, before the creation of man. All right, and this is where it describes K'moshe Netzla, as the Malchut is brought forth on the fourth day of creation, when she was in the inner meaning of the scripture, and God made the two great lights, because then the Malchut was receiving the most maximum possible amount of light. All right, and this is called Herad Shurk. Shurk is a code word in the Kabbalah, meaning that the light is found right in the vessel of the Malchut. The Hainu Chochma Beli Chasadim. It's receiving the great light of creation, but without any light of giving. Now, if we think back about what was the original purpose of the Malchut when she decided that she wanted to stop receiving and learn how to give, this is clearly a problematic moment, okay? Here she is receiving all this great light, but she doesn't have any light of giving, all right? So on the one hand, it's great for her to receive all this light. After all, the Malchut is the vessel. It is a vessel which actually wants to receive light, but its other priority is learning how to give. So having all this great light within her, without having the light of giving, is kind of like having frozen light, all right? I listened to Rabbi Gottlieb, and he described it as having like loads and loads of meat available to eat, but it's all frozen. You can't use it, okay? And in fact, in the Kabbalah, this situation of having just the light of Chokhmah, the light, the original light that God wants to give us according to his purpose of creation, but without the light of giving, is called Yamakafu. It's like the frozen sea. It's called a frozen sea. And so therefore the Malchut complained, okay? And again, this is sort of like a parable, all right? As if she complained and said, two kings can't use one crown, because the light is coming from Bina, and Bina is giving her light according to the vessels presented. And the Zerampin has the vessels for giving, and the Malchut has the vessels for receiving. So the Zerampin gets all the vessels, the light for the light of giving, and the Malchut gets all the light of Chokhmah, which is okay on one hand, an amazing light, but on the other hand, it's not useful. And the Malchut, not only is it not useful, it's actually a problem, okay? That not having the light of giving is for the Malchut a problem. Why? Because the Malchut is its basic nature, like we said, is the vessel for creation. It's the desire to receive all that goodness. And we as human beings are created from the Malchut, and we also have that desire to receive pleasure and goodness. And this leads to what's called the accusation of the Satan. Now, again, this is just a metaphor. What is the Satan? It's our will to receive for ourselves alone. Our will to receive for ourselves alone, which is our basic nature, is like the primal will to receive, which was in the Ein Sof. And you say, well, what's wrong with that? After all, it's our will to receive, which God created within us. It's our ego, which he helped us develop. It's our personalities. Okay, what's wrong with that? If we look at society, it's all run on the will to receive for oneself alone. What's wrong with it? What's wrong with it is it breaks the contract that Malchut made originally out of free choice, but which we are now obliged to follow. And that contract is that we absolutely have to let go of our receiving and choose to give instead, okay? Ultimately coming to using our vessels of receiving only for the sake of giving. It means that ultimately we get to be able to use all our ego, all our personality, all the skills, all the talents that God has given us with, but for compassion and for giving unconditionally and for connecting with the Creator and not for ourselves alone. Okay? If we don't, and we just simply use it as is, okay, what actually happens is we separate from the Creator, we separate from our souls, all right? And then there's all sorts of consequences. Now, we can either do tshuva, all right, and come back again consciously, and that's obviously the best choice. But if we don't and we just carry on, that is the cause of the suffering in the world, the greed, the suffering, the destruction, the murders, God forbid. All right, is ultimately the will to receive for oneself alone gone crazy. Okay, so when there's a tremendous light present, as there is on the beginning day of Rosh Hashanah, okay, because we said that on Rosh Hashanah, the situation of the Malchut goes back to its original state, which is being filled with light, all right, in a way, too much light for us to handle. Then the will to receive that light also wakes up. That it's that will to receive oneself alone is holding on to the Malchut. Say, yeah, I like the light, bring more light. But that brings also more negative situation of separation from the Creator and therefore judgments. So long as there is this tremendous light shining in the Malchut, so we have to do something, okay, which is going to, number one, lessen the amount of light that the Malchut is receiving, and two, wrap it with loving kindness, this action of giving, okay, in order that the will to receive, which is called the Satan here, all right, will not grab the light in an unwarranted way. All right? And that's why it says the Satan comes to accuse. The Satan is just another synonym for the will to receive oneself alone. The will to receive oneself alone, which I really like Rabbi Ashlag's description because it's descriptive, it tells you what it is the same as the Yetzer Hara, it's the same as the Satan, it's the same as the framework of uncleanness, it's the same as the angel of death, it's called the hater, it's called the enemy, it's called all sorts of names in the Talmud. Okay, it's got loads and loads and loads of different names, but it's basic, and it's called the Satan as well. But the only thing one really needs to know, it's all the same thing. It's simply the will to receive, that basic will to receive, being used against the decision of the Malchut of the Ein Sof. And because every Rosh Hashanah, this great light has come back into the world as it did at this level of beginning of the development of the Malchut, then the will to receive is also very present to want to receive this light. Now, this will to receive isn't present sort of just like out there somewhere. It's within us, okay? And I have to tell you personally, I notice every single year how very irritable I am every morning of Rosh Hashanah, okay? I find myself being super irritable, okay? And I think it's really being aware. And it's quite difficult because you can go to shul and you can have little children running around, okay, and not being quiet when they blow the shofar, and all sorts of things happen, all right? People who come to shul who don't usually come, so they don't always know how to behave necessarily. And it's very easy to get irritated, okay? And to understand that that's just what we're not meant to be doing, okay? That the irritation is not happening because of the children or because of the people who talk or whatever, but it's happening because the light is very strong and the will to receive it is very present, okay? So if we understand what's happening on our unconscious or wherever it's happening, it's inside of us, okay? So then we're given a good counsel from the Torah. And what are we told? We need to blow the shofar. Because the shofar, I'm going to explain now what the shofar is, what the shofar does. And this is what we said. Israel now comes to awaken with the shofar and to awaken the sound, which is made up of fire and water and air. All right. And as he said earlier, this is the three sfirot. Fire is gvura, water is chesed, and ruach is tiferet. Because in order to remove this hold of the will to receive on that great light, we've got to make an action which is going to, first of all, nullify this great light, okay? All right. And I'm going to skip a few lines here, all right, which is not relevant here. And this action is the sound, which we raise up through the shofar. And is known that in general, there are two types of sounds. One, you've got the sound of the malchut, as it is out on its own, built in teket bebina, which is not sweetened by bina, okay, which is the will to receive, all right? And kol bina, or shel malchut teket bebina. Or you've got the sound of bina. Bina is the sfira of compassion. Bina is the sfira which says, I want to give unconditionally, all right, or to God or to my fellow human beings, all right? And the malchut can be sweetened with bina. It can join with bina. It can use the garments of bina. She'az kolak kola bina. And when she does that, the sound of the malchut, or the voice of the malchut, is the same as the voice of bina. And he says that this voice that we raise up to limit this great light, to get it down, like number one, to reduce its huge amount, is the call of bina, is the sound of bina. And I mean, if you look at, like we saw in the Genesis chapter 1, okay, we saw in that one sentence, okay, you start off with two great lights and you end up with one great light and one small light, okay, so it's obviously the right thing, what needs to happen. How do we get it to happen? Through blowing the shofar. Shofar, and to bring forth this sound from within the shofar, the hainu bina hamukune shofar. That is bina, which is the sound of compassion, which is also called the shofar. Shofar is shufra de ima, the beauty of the mother. The mother is bina. Okay, bina, which is the sfira of compassion, the sfira of giving unconditionally. Shusod hamasach dechirik, shalav yotze kav emtzei, hameched shnei kavim yamin u'smol zeh b'zeh. And what does this sound do that we make? First of all, we say stop to receiving this great light. Okay. So we we choose not to receive the great light, but to give it back, to use that energy, this tremendous energy, like we're saying, we don't want to receive it, we want to give it back, okay? And when we do that, we get through to the middle line. It unites all three lines, the right-hand line, which is like Abraham, the left-hand line, which is like Yitzhak, and the middle line, which is Yaakov. And it brings through that middle line, which unites all all three lines together. Okay? And therefore we have the sound, which itself is included with fire, water, and air. It's the sound which itself is made up of these three lines, which are Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferet, Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. And they become one. So we put, first of all, a barrier to this great light. We give it back, okay? And then we add the aspect of giving unconditionally, and all three lines become one. And in this way, this tremendous light is now, number one, lessened, number two, balanced, okay? Wrapped with the light of loving kindness. And then the accusation of the Satan, that will to receive oneself alone, which is also personal but also communal, leaves the Malchut, as we're going to learn. So we can ask a question. I mean, I think it's a very valid question. How is it that blowing on a ram's horn actually does such a tremendous action? Okay? And the answer is that the physical world, okay, every single element in the physical world comes from the higher worlds. All right? And I think that's something really to remember, because we tend to don't necessarily connect our physical actions with our spiritual ones. But in fact, every single action that we do in the physical world, every thought, every speech, every action has to originate from the higher spiritual worlds. And then it comes and actualizes, materializes into the physical world. So we can take the shofar. It has to be a kosher shofar. Okay, this is why we have halacha, to make sure that the physical branch that we have in this world, okay, is actually going to act in the way it intended to. So there's, for example, it has to be it can't be a keren, it has to be a shofar. Okay, there's rules about it, precisely what you can use, what you can't use. Okay, and that's because the physical reality is a branch of the spiritual. Absolutely. So when we're blowing the shofar, or we're listening to the sound of the shofar, and we're taking part by saying amen to the blessing, okay, we are actually acting, doing an action which is not only heard by our physical ears, but is actually changing spiritual realities. Okay, and this is how we describe it in the Zohar. Shin Pei Bet, Vahu Kol Salka Adatam, the Karsaya de Dina Yatva, Ubatashba Vasalka, Kevan de Mata Hai Kol Mitata Kol Diakov, Itatkan Le'ela, Vakodesh Baruch Hu Itar Rachamei, Tahak Gavna d'Yisrael Mitarei Letata, Kol Had, Kalil Be'esha V'rucha V'maya, Denafki Kahada, Migo Shofar, Hachinamim Itar Le'ela, Shofar Vahu Kol the Kalil Be'esha V'maya V'rucha Itakan, V'nafak da mitata, V'da Me'ela, V'takan Olma V'rachamei Ishtakahu. So this voice goes up to the place. What place? We're not talking about places here. The consciousness, okay, of the throne of judgment, okay, where the throne of judgment is established. And again, this is metaphorical language, which is talking about the consciousness where this great light is, okay, which is causing the will to receive to hold on to there, all right? Umakeba, and it hits at that great light. It lessens this tremendous light. And so then the Malchut is now rectified. It leaves what's called the throne of judgment and moves to the throne of mercy. What does that actually mean? It means that the light is, number one, lessened, okay, so that the temptation for our will to receive for ourselves alone is also removed, okay. It also means that the direction of the light is changed, that instead of being receiving it, we're giving it back, all right? So it's like Sor Meirav Aseh Tov. It's like turning away from evil and doing good instead. So this energy doesn't get lost, this wonderful energy which has come into the world, it doesn't get lost, it gets redirected, okay? By the blowing of the shofar. So the blowing of the shofar has a profound effect. And once this sound arrives from below, in other words, from the communities of Israel who blow the shofar, therefore, this middle line is also rectified above. So that means that when we put that barrier to our will to receive, that light goes back up. Okay, we're now giving. We're saying we don't want to receive, we want to be giving. That a light of the middle line, okay, which is the light of giving, the light of compassion, can now come into our personal world and into the world at large. And this is called mercy. And this is called the movement from the throne of judgment to the throne of mercy. All right? And then the Holy Blessed One awakens in mercy. Because as Israel awakened this one voice from below, which is made up of the three elements, we said, which is the fire, the water, and the air, which is the equivalent of Gvura, Chesed, and Tiferet, which is the right-hand line. The right-hand line is, the left-hand line is Gevurah, the right-hand line is Chesed, and the middle line is Tiferet. And these come forth from the shofar. So awakens an equivalent, the shofar, the higher shofar, which is the higher shofar, the shofar of Rachamim, okay? The shofar of mercy, the shofar of Bina. So when we make this physical action with the blessing, with the intentions, all right, what are we doing? We are reducing this great light and we're bringing forth the sound of compassion. Now, he describes it like in the physical way that the power to make the sound is the equivalent of the fire, which we said was the gevura, all right? And the sound itself is made by the air going through, okay, which is the ruach, which is the tiferet. V'maruch yotzei gam ken zeh v'hevel. And together with the air is also water drops, and water vapor from a person's mouth, shusod mayim, which is the water. So we have all three elements in the physical, all right, okay, and they are the branches which awaken the same three elements which gave rise to them in the spiritual, because you've got this equivalence of branch and root. Branch in this world, root in the spiritual world, all right, and everything is root and branch. So these three elements awaken the three lines in Bina, from which comes the consciousness of light, of compassion to the Zerampin and to the Malchut. Okay? But who called the Khalil Ba'eshav Maya Varucha Itakan? And so now this balanced light, okay, which is not too great, which is balanced, all right, which is okay for us, is now made up of the three lines of the Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferet, is rectified, okay, which comes up from above, it comes from below, is rectified, and the equivalent light of loving kindness is rectified in the world, and so that the Malchut is in mercy, and in a Malchut is rectified, and mercy is to be found. Okay. All right. So far, so good. Everybody with me?
Yes.
Great. Fantastic. Shin Pei Gimel. Vahu mikatsuga irbev. The chashiv l'shalta abedina. Ulekatsuga ba'olama. Vachami demitare rachamei bekedin. Irbev. Vitashash chelei. V'lo yochil la'amed midai. V'kodesh baruch hu dayin l'olma b'rachamei. V'itema dedini tavid. Lav hachi. Ela itchabu rachamei bedina. V'olma itan b'rachamei. V'mekatreg navuch. And the accuser, who's the accuser, the will to receive for oneself alone, is confused. What's going on here? It thought it was going to get control. It thought it was going to rule. It never imagined that we would want to release this great light. Okay? And this is the beauty of the mitzvot of the Torah, because the mitzvot are so exact to tell us precisely what to do at the right time. I mean, this is really amazing. Okay? To tell us this is what's happening on Rosh Hashanah. Okay? This is what the job of Am Yisrael is to do. It's a precise job. Okay? And I really believe that we blow the shofar not only for Am Yisrael, we blow it for the whole world, to bring the sound of compassion into the whole world. And the will to receive oneself alone is like, what's going on? Because it never imagined that this great light, we would want to lessen this great light. And it sees that compassion is awakening. And it's confused. And its strength is lessened. Can't do anything. And the Holy Blessed One judges the world with love, with compassion. If you were to say, well, judgment has been done in the sense that this great light has been diminished by the voice of the shofar, That's not the case. But Rachamim is being joined with the judgment which is inherent in the Malchut, because the Malchut has that will to receive, and instead of which it's chosen compassion instead. And the world is judged with mercy. Perush. Ki baliat kol shofar milamata. Shu sod halat mein nukvin de masach techirik. Yatzar kol mata chasadim. That because of, by raising up the sound of the shofar through our action, okay, we're establishing a barrier to the great light on which can come forth this light of compassion, which is the middle line. And this is called Yaakov, and this is called compassion. And the world receives compassion from the middle line, which is a balanced light. Okay? Shin Pei Dalet. Tachazi Kativ, Tiku Bachodesh Shofar, Bekesem Hagenu, did Kasya Sihara, Dakadin, Shalta Haichivia Bisha, Vechil Niska Olma, Vakad Mitarer Hamei, Salta Sihara, Vitavat Mitaman, Viu it Albei, Velo Yachil Shaltaa, Vitarvar, Delo Yitkarev Taman, Valda Biom Rosh Hashanah, Baila Arbavale, Commandit Mishnatei, Velo Yudea Klum. Come and see, it's written. Tiku Bachodesh Shofar, Bekeseh Liom Hagenu. Sound somebody put something in the chat, I don't know what it says. Okay. Tiku Bachodesh Shofar, Bekeseh Liom Hagenu. Sound the shofar at the time when the moon is covered, which is our festival, which means nitkasta levana. It is that what is the time when the moon is covered? It's exactly what we said. But is that when the malchut is covered because it's too much light present. Okay, as we said right at the very beginning, when that great light is present, as far as we're concerned, that it can't shine. We can't receive such a great light. It's like we said, it's like having frozen meat. You serve frozen meat, or you get served frozen meat at dinner or something. It's called yama kafu. It's the frozen sea. Okay. That's another name for the sitra, for the will to receive oneself alone. It's called the evil snake, okay, after the snake in the Garden of Eden, all right? It's got lots of names, all right? Because that will to receive, because the light is present, that will to receive also wants to grab. And that can cause a lot of damage in the world, because the world cannot run with everybody using their will to receive oneself alone. And the problem with the will to receive oneself alone is it never knows any boundaries. Okay, it wants one lot, then it gets 2 lots, then it gets 4 lots, then it gets 8 lots, 100, 200, 400, and a person dies and can never satisfy his appetite. The will to receive oneself alone is an exponential disaster. Okay, it just all the time grows in exponential fashion and can never be satisfied. And the only way to deal with it is to get off its track altogether. And this is what we're doing when we blow the shofar. We're absolutely stopping it in its tracks. That's what we're doing. Okay, we're saying no to this great light. We are using the barrier to raise up the sound of the shofar, the sound of compassion, and totally changing tracks from having that will to receive oneself alone operative and moving over to compassion, the sound of Bina. So through the sounding of the shofar, the Levana, the moon, which is the the metaphor for the Shekhinah, for the Malchut, moves away from that great light. But Satan Navoch, and the will to receive oneself alone, whether the individual or the general, is confused. It can't rule, and it leaves the Shekhinah. And it doesn't get close there again. Came B'yom Rosh Hashanah, and this is the reason why on the day of Rosh Hashanah, on the beginning of this whole new cycle of the Malchut, when the Malchut's development begins again, we need to confuse the Satan with what we're doing, to a state where it's sort of like confused, like somebody who's just woken up from sleep and doesn't know anything. All right. Now, that tikkun of the Malchut and getting the Malchut in the right direction isn't finished on Rosh Hashanah. Okay, we've then got the Aseret Yemei Tshuva, which starts on Rosh Hashanah and finishes on Yom Kippur. Okay, and Yom Kippur is another tikkun of the Malchut. All right, and finally, the whole thing finishes on Simchat Torah. Okay, so we have the left-hand line is Rosh Hashanah. The right-hand line is Yom Kippur, and the middle line is Sukkot. Okay, so we've got basically the whole of the month of Tishrei is dealing with the tikkun of the Malchut, particularly the aspect of the left hand, the vessels of receiving, which relate to Yitzchak, which relate to Isaac. And that's why Isaac is so prominent in the whole of these festivals. Okay, great. I think that's a good place to stop. All right. So that was a Bezrat Hashem. We should only be blessed with rachamim, with compassion and mercy in the coming year. And I absolutely want to just stop the show a moment. Okay. And everybody can unmute their mics, and let's wish each other Shabbat Shalom and a Shana Tova.
Shabbat Shalom, Shana Tova.
Shabbat Shalom and Shana Tova, everybody. Lovely to have everybody.
Thank you.
May I ask a question?
Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
May I ask a question?
Yes, of course.
You mentioned that Isaac is very prominent in the festivals. Has that got anything to do with why he had to be the one who was going to be sacrificed, that he had to give up like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a lot to do with it. That's because Abraham is the aspect of giving unconditionally, but Yitzchak's root of his soul is the aspect of receiving. And so he's got the vessels of wanting to receive the great light of creation. And that desire to receive unchecked is definitely problematic. The desire to receive unchecked is a really is problematic. Yeah, absolutely. So the shofar, which we blow on Rosh Hashanah, is the symbol, is also the shofar is taken from the ram's horn, because the ram's horn, as you know, when God told Abraham not to actually sacrifice Yitzchak, but to take the ram caught in the thicket. So that's the shofar is like the symbol of the Akedah. So yes, it's absolutely right what you said. Yes, it's because he has the vessels of receiving. And that's also, for example, the reason why tefillin is binding the left-hand line, so that all the issues are the problems of the vessels of Yitzchak. Yes, that's absolutely true what you said. Great.
May I have a
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm trying to word it. So basically, the way the nations get into Rosh Hashanah and the effect of it is by attaching to Israel, because it's Israel that's doing the shofar blowing and everything. And it has to be in the land, correct?
Well, I think we're doing it for everybody, whether they're conscious of it or not, actually. um, I think that first of all, it starts within one person. Okay. So within every single person, we have the aspect of Israel, which is the soul, and we have the wills to receive oneself alone, so that every single person is a world within themselves. And then you can just extrapolate that out to all the world. So you've got the aspect of Israel, the aspect of the Jewish people, and you have the other nations, and you've got different degrees of closeness of the other nations to Israel. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you. Because your teaching has really helped me on all this too, with that as you guys, how do I want to say it, take it out, it also comes to where it brings everybody in.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Great.
Thank
Okay.
you.
All right. You're very welcome. So Shana Tova, Bezrat Hashem, and and Shabbat Shalom. And I'll see you next time.
Yes. Shana Tova.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Bye.